Let's have a look at the Premiership now. And there's only one real place to start, isn't there? What on earth happened at the end of Bristol's win over Leicester?
Love it. I
Scrap.
love drama.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it is, Andrew, now, I don't know how much you watch the engagement, but I put a tweet up, of course I did, just to see if I can get a few more followers. I did, I got about 300 more. Let's get this out of the way. Well, there's a couple of things I want to make about this. I want Leicester to win, right? I wanted Leicester to win. I want Leicester to win. I wanted Leicester to qualify for the top 8. So my bias lies with Leicester, right?
So you're biased. What you're saying is you're biased.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, but I wasn't on my tweet, and that comes down to it. Also, what happened in the game does not affect my life at all, right? So it ain't personal. Like when I'm tweeting it or I'm watching it, it's sport, right? And the people getting angry and shouting cheat and it's ridiculous and F this and F that and S that and see that. Someone might have said the C word, which arguably is the best swear word in the dictionary of swear words. But I'm siding here with Bristol on that specific interaction of the game. Now, Andrew, do you want me to give you my recollection of how I saw it? Right?
Yeah, you go for it.
So as we know, it was a proper game. Leicester, proper physical. Bristol's arguably in third or fourth gear, looked like they were going to win the game or going to find a way to win the game. Leicester start turning the screw. So let's fast forward. Leicester start turning the screw at the end, going back to what we've seen with Leicester in recent weeks. More into the cowsheds and back, scrumming to the cowsheds and back. Now, this is where it gets interesting, right? They get a scrum at the end of the game. They get a penalty at the end of the game. I personally would have kicked a corner, right? That's what I would have done off the back of Leicester's history, right? Scrums up in the air about what can happen. Nonetheless, Leicester go for the scrum. Great idea at the time because they win 3, 4, 5 penalties off the back of it, right? Tempest goes to his book and Simbins, the Bristol replacement prop. Skavanich, right? So anyway, let's speed through that. Then you find yourself in a situation, right? You're Leicester. You've gone through the whole process of scrumming to the cowsheds and back. They want a scrum. The testosterone is high, right? The baby rhino is keen for more, okay? So you've got John Afoa, the poor bugger. He's 40 years old. Let's just say he's 45 years old. He's been pulled off at 41 minutes. Weren't meant to play, apparently, anyway. Carl Sinclair was meant to play. So John Afoa was rocked up. He stepped up. Imagine, right, sitting on the bench, even if you're 25 years old and being like, right, off you go, sir. No one, but fuck warming up the neck. You're on. So Pat Lam comes down to the bench. No mask on, right? No mask on. I don't know. It might be exempt. And all the Leicester bench are screaming at John Afoa, get on there. He's fine. Get on there. It's tactical. Get on there. And I'm thinking, you don't want to wind a 42-year-old Kiwi up, like who can scrum to the cowsheds and back. But nonetheless, that's what we're doing. He sat there on his hands, right? He's like, I ain't that keen to go on. You got the baby rhino is literally testosterone fueled up to the eyeballs. John Afoa at 42. I don't know when you start losing testosterone, but I think it's at 38, which is the age I am at now. They're all screaming, get yourself on. Pat obviously comes down mass free, and they're trying to work out whether John Afoa can go back on. One, did he come off because he was injured? He didn't come off, he was injured. But what he was trying to say was, he'd come off because he weren't meant to be playing, and they're trying to look after him. Now, is it safe to put him back on in a scrum? Then obviously Ian Tempest said, well, if he doesn't go back on, Bristol's, you need to yank another player off because you can't put John Afoa on because it was tactical and it was an injury. So therefore, we need to give Leicester the opportunity to try and win the match in that way. Anyway, as that's happening, John Afoa gets up to go. Steve's like, yes, thank you. Like, as in, like, you've said you're going to go back on, he's going to go. Then Steve's like, no. He starts squaring up. He's like, no. Like, you know, he said he's injured. He said, so all of a sudden there's this fucking carnage going on. Pat Lam's saying, if he goes on, Pat Lam's like, if he goes on as you tell me, it's on you. So, you know, they've all got the bushes out. They're all peacocking. Fast forward, John Afoa goes on. He's the last man you want to go on for a scrum as well because he's that good. Let's just say he absolutely hoses Genji, beep. Ball is in and around the back row's feet. Who knows? It doesn't matter where it is. Leicester have just been hosing the scrum, ball out, game over, Bristol's win. And then there's uproar, right? There's uproar around, you know, are they cheating? Do you know what I mean? Is it bad sportsmanship? And then, Andrew, I'll leave it over to you, mate. I weren't that bothered. Like, I thought that interaction there in that moment like John Afoa, he can either go back on because it was tactical, all right, and it's up to him really. It's up to the manager. It's up to the medics. Ian Tempest says to him when he's on the pitch, "You look stiff as fuck, but either way, are you good to go? Like, are you all right? Are you fit to play?" John Afoa says yes. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
The big thing lies around that kind of interaction on the bench, and Leicester feel like they're stitched up. If I was Leicester and I wanted Leicester to win, I'd be annoyed that it took that many penalties to see a sin bin in. Should it have been a penalty try? No, because the scrums were going down. They weren't being pushed back, as it were. But I'll go back to it, Andrew. Fucking love the drama.
Well, G3 has asked on Twitter, why no penalty try at the end of Leicester Bristol game? Blatant repeated violations in the scrum, even before Lamb's gamesmanship.
Well, you can't, for penalty tries, the referee has to be certain that a try is going to be scored. So from the penalties that were given away at scrum time, Leicester would never go in forward at a rate of knots where the 8's controlling the ball and it looks like they're going to score and then the scrum drops. It was all infringement. So all the actual referee can do is just go to his yellow card. The argument is, should he gone to his yellow card earlier? And that's the debate, really. So you can only give a penalty try if the referee is certain that a try was going to be scored and an act of foul play has stopped that from happening. And you can't look at those scrums and say they were definitely going to march them over, because it was, although he was giving penalties away, it was straight away at engagement and as the balls come in and all that stuff. So there's never a penalty try. But first thing I'll say is Ian Tempest handled that first part of it exceptionally well. And the worst thing for me from Pat Lam was to say, if he goes on and he gets injured, that's your responsibility. And I thought that was a bit naughty from Pat Lam. And I'm sure Pat regrets that, because he's then tried to put the onus on the referee for a player getting injured, which isn't fair at all. It's not his fault. And actually, when you look back on it and sum it all up, what actually happened is the fact that it was a tactical substitution at half time on the card. He ends up going back on anyway. So they haven't actually done anything wrong in terms of the process of what they did, of taking John Afoa off for a tactical and then eventually he goes back on.
That's what they wanted. That's what they wanted. Leicester was screaming for him to go back on.
It's the way it all manifested itself. So Steve Borthwick would have probably got what he wanted of John Afoa not going back on, because he flipped, didn't he? So Borthwick has come down and he's realised that John Afoa can actually go back on. It's tactical. And he was like, he said he's good to go. You're lying, get him on. When Pat Lam was saying he was injured. So then they work out, he said, well, eventually it all comes down. Ian Tempest says to them, look, he goes back on if it's tactical and he can do it. He goes back on, you go back to 13 players. And to be fair to Pat Lam's like, okay, fine. And then they walk off. And John Afoa is obviously seeing all this develop. He's the one in the middle going, well, I can do it. So fuck it. I'll go and do it. And
then the DP. You see, he put the DP on the back neck. Yeah, good to go.
Mate, the DP is the thing that saves everything. So, apart from your nutsack. So I think when you look at it, Pat Lam manipulated the situation, but actually, when you're looking back on it, there wasn't actually anything that they did against the rules or laws, because they went tactical. When John Afoa, I'm sure he didn't want to go back on initially, and then when they realised the fact that you're going down to 13 men. It was only going to be an uncontested scrum anyway, but then you've still got to have 8 forwards in that scrum. So Leicester would have been attacking from a scrum, if you'd have gone to the scrum, from 5 metres out, an uncontested scrum, but you've only got 5 defenders left if you're Bristol's, because you've got 8 in the pack, you've got 5 backs, and then that totals 13. So you'd expect Leicester to score from an uncontested scrum, because you only got to make 5 metres over the game line to make it happen. So I'll just give it to Nandolo. He'd have definitely scored. But I think in Steve Borthwick insisting that he wanted the testosterone, I think in Steve Borthwick insisting that John Afoa said he's fit, the testosterone's flowing, as Jim said, and then you see Richard Wigglesworth come over, whisper something to Steve Borthwick, and I'm sure Wiggy knows the game as a scrum half, as most halfbacks know the game. Probably said they're going to go down to 13 men if he doesn't come back on. And then Borthwick flips again and says, "No, he said he's injured. You're lying. So it's not a good look. Pat definitely manipulated the system. Pat definitely manipulated the situation slightly. And when John Afoa said he's good to go, he's good to go. But the one thing that frustrated me the most is, and where I think the officials might have got it slightly wrong, that last scrum, whether it was legal or not what John Offair was doing, because people have said he was going at the angle, whatever. The ball was still in, and Andy Oren has taken the ball out of the scrum. The ball was still in, to me, like the back of the scrum, in, as it's come through the second row's feet, in between the 6 and the 8, and he's just picked the ball up, kicked it out, ref's blown up. Now, the big thing for me is, and I did a column for RugbyPass, is when you're looking at that, the TMO needs to be able to judge and come in on something that is game deciding like that at the end of the game, to see whether he did
regardless of the drama in the lead up, because that was the thing. I think everyone just wanted to get to Zanzibar, didn't they? I don't know if it was over in Leicester, but Tempo wanted in there, mate.
Yeah, and the other thing on it is, no one's really said this, but what's John Arthur's reaction in citing Richard Wigglesworth, who then judo rolls him onto the floor? But you could have done John Arthur for unsporting behaviour and penalise him for that. But it was just the height of emotions for everyone, wasn't it? So whilst actually, when you break it down, they didn't change the cards or manipulate the situation, said someone was injured when they weren't, or whatever. They followed actually the protocol, led by Ian Tempest, by the fact that it was a tactical substitution at half time. He tried to say he was injured. He wasn't. John Arthur is going for it full beans, 48 years of age, 480 grand a year. That's how you earn your coin.
How good to see Leicester in a ding-dong, though. Let's just finish on that. As in, how good to see a Leicester team in that moment as fired up, instead of just fluffing about doing nothing. I was well happy to see them back in that testosterone-fueled drama. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, it's great. And this weekend they play Wasps in what is probably a shootout to see who guarantees himself European rugby. I think Wasps and Leicester will both end up in it. But yeah, Leicester are back to their old ways in terms of the physicality, scrum time, set piece, all that hard-nosed stuff that has gone missing over the last few years. It's great to see them back, and hopefully that will build again into next year, and hopefully they get Champions Cup rugby as well as Wasps do as well, because it's very important that 3 clubs in the Midlands, including Northampton, are in the Champions Cup next year.